Greetings and peace be unto you. I greet you in truth, balance, and wholeness. Let us arise in power. Peace and blessings to my African family in Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Somalia, Nigeria, Egypt, also known as ancient Kemet, Zambia, Angola, Uganda, Seychelles, Tanzania, the Congo, Mali, and Zimbabwe. To my extended family in Guyana and New Guinea, Singapore, Malaysia, India, Sri Lanka, Guatemala, and Venezuela. And to my sisters and brothers of humanity here in the United States and across the globe. Thank you for your words of encouragement, your suggestions, your support, your viewing and sharing of my content. Today, February 20th, is President's Day. Many of us are off from work, taking advantage of this holiday. President's Day, originally created to celebrate and give honor to President George Washington, the first president of the United States of America. His birthday was celebrated on February 22nd, up until the 20th century. And in 1968, Congress passed a law to change the observance to the third Monday in February. This is creating a 3-day weekend. Now many have come to recognize all the presidents that have served as leaders of this country. But let's be clear that the majority of the first 14 presidents of this country may not be recognized and may not be honored by many people in this land. For many of the first 14 presidents in this country were slave owners of enslaved Africans. Not enslaved African Americans, but enslaved Africans. The first president, George Washington, a slave owner. Thomas Jefferson, a slave owner. James Madison, a slave owner. James Monroe, a slave owner. Andrew Jackson, a slave owner. Martin Van Buren, a slave owner. William Henry Harrison, a slave owner. John Tyler, a slave owner. James K. Polk, a slave owner. Zachary Taylor, a slave owner. President Andrew Jackson, a slave owner. And yes, Ulysses S. Grant, a slave owner. Although he only had one slave, still one slave is enough. But let's be fair. He freed his slaves on March 29, 1859, 2 years before the start of the Civil War. But still, let's be clear, a slave owner. But let me deal with the so-called founding father of this nation, the hero of the people, the icon for the American citizens, or during that time, the white American citizen. George Washington, a military officer, a statesman, a patriot, the father of his country, commander of the Continental Army, led forces to victory in the American Revolutionary War. Must I remind you, slavery still existed. He became president in 1789, serving until 1797. This man is the reason why this nation has a holiday called President's Day. That many of us are free from labor this day. Yet he used hundreds of enslaved Africans, not African Americans, hundreds of enslaved Africans for free labor, for his benefit, for his family's benefit, and for the benefit of this country. President George Washington, the first president, owned over 300 slaves. Some reports up to 600 slaves, enslaved Africans. Sources say he struggled with the institution of slavery. But why did he keep slaves for 56 years? Sources say that he had a problem with the institution of slavery. But why did he keep slaves for 56 years? It took 56 years, or until his death in 1799 in his will, to free all his slaves. But only, I'll say that again, only after the death of his wife Martha. He struggled in his mind with slavery, while human beings, enslaved Africans, struggled with their life every day. He inherited a 230-acre family farm near Fredericksburg, Virginia. He started out with 10 slaves, inherited from his father. Later, he purchased 8 more slaves as a young man. And then the rest is history, or might I say, his story. Hundreds of enslaved Africans he was master over. A large increase of slaves came from his union with his wife Martha Curtis and the Curtis family estate. Some sources try to paint him as a gentle slave master who did not believe in corporate physical punishment of his slaves. But there are confirmed stories from former slaves proving otherwise. He may not have been a violent slaveholder, but there were times he issued out physical punishment on enslaved Africans, enslaved human beings, especially on our black women. Yet we cannot get away from the fact that he owned slaves. Africans, human beings, individuals torn from their country, taken away from their tribes, families separated, never to see each other again, stripped of their language, stripped of their culture, stripped of their religious practices, brought to this land, not able to read, forced not to read, except for the Bible. Enslaved Africans who built this nation. Close to 600 owned by the first president of this United States of America. This day, President's Day, was established and originated in honor of this man. Just like many other plantations, George Washington had many slaves who attempted to run away to regain their freedom. He posted runaway signs and advertisements for them to be captured. If he had a heart, why not let them go? If he was such a gentle slave master, why not just let them be free? Now, I am not ignorant to the fact that the institution of slavery caused many white men to make some decisions that were considered immoral and evil, but yet acceptable for their survival and the survival of their family and the survival of their status and their livelihood for their family and the building of this nation. Even their family members benefited from this institution called slavery. Their sons, their daughters, their grandsons, their granddaughters, their nieces, their nephews. This is the bonds of white supremacy. There are claims that he had a son by an enslaved African woman. Now, I have not seen any solid, proven, confirmed facts on this, but I would not doubt it. It was not uncommon for the white slave master to take advantage and take liberties sexually on our black enslaved African women. Hundreds of enslaved Africans were used to build the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and other government buildings. Now, here's a special note. In New York, Wall Street, the original wall the Wall Street is named for was built by enslaved Africans at the site that was the city's first auction block. Northern states, you are not exempt from the horrors of slavery. It is documented in George Washington's ledger that in 1784, May 8th, he paid £6, 2 shillings for a non-Negro's teeth on the account of French dentist Dr. Linné. That myth of him having wooden teeth is just that, a myth and a lie. Not only did he take the life away from human beings from the continent of Africa and enslaved them, but he also took their body parts for his benefit. Think about that for a moment. On this President's Day, which originally was in honor of the first president of this nation, and yet the first 14 presidents, or correction, the majority of the first 14 presidents of this country were slave owners. Why am I exposing some of these truths? Why am I telling you some of these documented facts on this day? Imagine being in a classroom of children who are taught to admire these men. We have pictures of these men plastered on the walls, in the library, in the halls of institutions. And imagine this child who is taught all the greatness of the so-called founding fathers of the United States of America, because they did not build this land. The land was already here. Yet they used and abused enslaved Africans to build a nation on top of a land that was invaded, conquered, stolen, and colonized by white Europeans. This great nation, built by the hands, the blood, the sweat, the tears, and sometimes by the death of enslaved Africans. The children need to know the truth. Some people can't handle the truth. Others are afraid to tell the truth. Some people just don't know the truth or try to ignore the truth. Many don't know how to explain the truth. But the truth must be told. Am I saying remove George Washington from everything? No. Am I saying take down the statues of George Washington and any other slave owner? No. Am I saying change the school's name of George Washington? Colleges named after George Washington. Businesses and sports teams named after George Washington. Street signs and the capital of this country, Washington, D.C., named after George Washington. Should we take his image off the dollar bill and off the walls of buildings? Maybe. But no. But I am saying, stop hiding and covering up the truth. Stop the whitewashing and the brainwashing. Stop the passive narratives to try and eliminate the fact that although he may have accomplished some great things, George Washington, the first president of this country, did not do right by all people in this country. Stop the lies of calling those enslaved Africans African Americans. They were not even considered human beings. They were not Americans. Even the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights proves that. The documents that say that all men are created equal was not talking about black men or black women. These human beings were enslaved Africans who were viewed as property only, compared to animals, and in some cases the animals are treated better than the enslaved Africans during slavery. Stop the whitewashing, stop the brainwashing, and free your minds. True freedom comes from the liberating of your mind. So on this day, President's Day, originally George Washington's birthday celebration, I will pass. But would you consider free your mind, and the rest will follow. Until next time, peace and bright moments.